So welcome. My name is Gregor von Laschewski. The last name is a little bit complicated to pronounce if you're an English speaker. The V is pronounced with like an F, and the SZ is pronounced like a sh, like in chef. And then the W is part of that chef, and then ski is ski, like skiing. So if you pronounce this, it's like von Laschewski. That's the name. Now, my email is given here at laschewski@gmail.com because my last name is so complicated. Please just call me Gregor, and that's actually pretty good. This meeting time is being scheduled dependent on the particular group. There are other groups. The slides here contain this. I will actually remove the time so that I can share this with other groups also. And I hope you can see this nicely. I try to make it bigger. This participation for this particular group is voluntarily, while other groups actually do receive a grade for the activity that they have, and there are some implication to this. And I'm getting to this now. This applies to all that I will be presenting, so that I can present this presentation to those that have different requirements than the ones you have. So this is a strictly voluntary effort as far as I found out. However, you need to be spending time on this project, and if you don't, you should not participate. The reason for this is I'm spending a significant amount of my free time, not my work time, on this particular project, and I can't afford teaching everybody everything, and then after 2 weeks, you know, or 3 months or two months, you just disappear. So this is a serious commitment, and you need to be evaluating if you have actually time for this. Now, the effort for the volunteers is at least a 3 hour per week, but it really depends on your availability. 3 hours per week needs to be adjusted in a period from 3 to 6 months. However, with 3 hours a week, you cannot achieve much programming. So the recommendation is 6 to 12 hours per week, and then you're really a fantastic contributor. And some people even spend more on this. So how much you do is really depends on you, but you need to communicate to us how much you spend, because it has an impact in the task management. If you have 1 hour time per week, it's not worthwhile my time or Rajni's time or anybody else's time to do that effort. So please evaluate this. So have enough time to do that. So I say, if you participate less than 3 hours, don't participate. It really does not work well. You will be mandated to participate in the weekly meeting. And if you cannot attend, you have to tell us on Slack that you cannot attend. But you don't have to give us a reason why you cannot attend, because this is a voluntary meeting and we don't need to have specific reasons for this. However, if you continuously not attend the meeting, we will ask you what's up, and can you not make some time if there's a time conflict appearing, so that we have to reschedule the meeting. In these meetings in the week, it turns out best that everybody goes around and for a couple of minutes says, what have you achieved? What have you not achieved? How can we help you so that you can achieve your goal? What are you planning to do next week? How will you be introducing the activities in the overall goal? So how does it fit in the overall goal? And as I already mentioned, if you can't participate, please inform us. The rule here is this is as with any project or with any activity that you are doing, the more you put in, the more you get out. If you don't put anything in, you don't get anything out. Here is a new rule that I have established this semester. I will no longer put people in draft documents till the project is finished. The reasoning for this is that I had previously a really bad experience with volunteers, and they simply stopped working on the efforts as soon as the draft was being published on the website, on my website publicly. And what they did is they created their own PDFs and put that information in their resumes and submitted the resumes to their prospective employers and never contributed anything to the project. So what I actually did is I removed them later on from the document because they apparently did not contribute. And naturally, when an employer then double checks on your resume and you introduce a publication and you are no longer being mentioned because you just were there for 1 hour for the entire project and haven't written any word in that document, you should not be surprised that the employer will ask you, why do you put this on? And you're not even mentioned as an author in the official document. So we have this mandatory policy that also no draft of documents will be able to be put on your own website, but you will have to refer to the official URL that I will be giving you. Authorship has to be earned and is no longer automatic. Certainly, I can write reference letters when they are being requested, and I'm happy to do so. Just make sure you contribute. Now I have to move this thing out of the way. So since you are volunteers, there's another group of students that participates in this, and these are official class students. And I have created 2 slides for this. Although you may not be part of this group, I just reported here so that I don't have to reintroduce this. We are doing this project in a collaboration with the National Institute of Standards. How much better can it be? Students typically don't even participate in this. The time required for class project is a minimum of 3 credit hours, despite the fact that I also accept 2 credit hours. And credit hours is here typically a multiplication factor of 3 to 4 to translate this into time effort for class projects. So this means the class projects have a minimum of 9 hours or 12 hours. And the reasoning is if you look at tier 1 universities, they have a multiplication factor of 4, while lesser good universities have a multiplication factor of 3 of the credit hours. In this project, we will be analyzing and evaluating cloud AI services that are offered by various cloud providers. You will be developing a service that utilizes multiple AI services from different providers. And all of this done is in Python, and you will contribute to a paper that's being submitted to NIST. And findings are reported in that report with your descriptions. The project for classes is typically up to 3 students. However, I accept in this particular project also 4 students. If anything more than that, we often see that the more students there are, we have 1 or 2 students that are just observing what other people are doing and do not produce themselves something. And so this way task management becomes easier. The requirements here are the same as for the voluntary effort. There's a 1-hour meeting, and the credit hours I already pointed out. You must be self-motivated. That's valid for any project. You must have knowledge of Python. And in case you are applying for this effort, you have to prepare a resume that lists all relevant knowledge in computer science, data science, and programming, AI. And if spade is type, write your experience in a more detailed cover letter. And academic resumes are not limited to a one-page resume or cover letter. You can write more than that. And just figure out what is relevant. So what will you learn, and what are the outcomes of this? First of all, you have an opportunity to work with state-of-the-art cloud computing services. You integrate with AI services that are offered in the cloud. You improve your Python programming skills. You work in a collaborative research environment and learn how to write academic papers and posters. And you will also have the opportunity to do a presentation. The voluntary groups, the presentation is waived. Instead, we are working on manuals, which this particular group also has to do. Then you will also be able to learn how to integrate your stuff into the resume. Often I'm reviewing students' resumes and give feedback on how to improve this from my perspective. My perspective could be wrong. And then optional, in case this class receives grades, we typically have a much better outcome than if people don't receive grades, because there's more pressure being put forward. And you don't have the argument, oh, well, you know, I don't get a grade for this, so let me work on this particular class first before I go here. And that's natural because you have priorities and you have to fulfill your priorities. And then lastly, what will you contribute, or what is one of your outcomes? Certainly, you will be contributing to the NIST effort, which is a unique opportunity for you, and make the world really a better place if you so want. So let's go to the communication pathways that you have. All meetings are being scheduled with me on Zoom, and the link is being presented here. We are currently working on a draft paper. This draft paper will be unmodified, and we will create a new paper in which the new members will be contributing to. And the reason is we have to have a historical record of the first paper that we did. I will be adding the new paper link here, and then you will be able to contribute to this. There is a GitHub page for the effort. Right now, it's just called cloudmesh-catalog, because this is one of the subcomponents that we develop. And so we will start with this. We have a Slack channel, and the link is being provided here. Currently, for this effort, and this may actually change depending on which groups we have. For this effort, we have an India team that's listed here, and we have a meeting time between 10 and 11 Wednesday Eastern Standard Time. If others want to join, I still accept others from India, but they must be dedicated as you are. The US team will be meeting Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Unfortunately, I was not yet able to get the US team to do the Wednesday 10-11 meeting, so they may have classes during this time. So we have two meetings, and it's only mandated to attend one of the meetings. It becomes a problem if students are shy and send me private Slack messages that contain technical content. Then I have to share the post, and Slack doesn't make it that easy for me to do so. So if you have any technical contact, please share this in the Slack channel, cloudmesh-catalog. If you need to send me a private message, please do so, but limit them and keep them small. And then when you send a private message, start cleaning out your private folder after a while, so that you remove the unimportant messages and take the content out. So like, for example, I ask students, okay, what's your GitHub account and what's your email and what's your computer? Please put that into the private section. But if you ask me to meet at a particular time and the meeting is over with, you may want to remove that request. And actually, it would be better to just ask that request publicly, because others are always invited to join. So all meetings with me are open meetings, and they can be joined by anybody. Lastly, do not send me any reason why you cannot attend a meeting. I know that life is difficult, and I don't need to have a particular reason. Just say you cannot attend. Also indicate there when you will be attending, but instead of sending it to me privately, please send it publicly. And that's the reason why I don't want you to send me a reason. But instead, just give us an indication when we can expect you back. The technical goals that we actually have are very simple, so but they are not trivial. So first, we have a task where we analyze and evaluating cloud services offered by various cloud providers. Google has and Amazon has, for example, 119 such services, a plus. So there are many more that we probably don't know about. And we need to be figuring out a way on how do we locate these services and how we communicate them to others. Then we develop a service that utilizes multiple of these services and create an analytics workflow where we create a function basically that does a calculation or uses a service to produce something. And what that will be, we have to yet decide. And since we have multiple students, each of the students can utilize one of these services by themselves or research it and come up with one. Or if it's a more complicated activity, multiple students can research this. Okay, this is what's happening on Amazon, this is what's happening on Azure, this is what's happening on Google, and so forth. And then we compare them, and then we integrate these services that we have. An example is natural language processing, where you may just take a sentence and fire off the function to translate the sentence or the paragraph or the paper, and you get an output back. And the output is then maybe the result of that analysis. Another task would be, for example, to do an AI service explicitly, where, for example, LSTM algorithm is being invoked on the cloud provider to do, for example, COVID analysis or earthquake analysis and predict when, for example, COVID's cases and death will rise, or compared against what historical records are, and an earthquake maybe predict, what the likelihood for an earthquake over the next week or next year or next 5 years. We want to not only develop things natively, but develop things in containers for easy deployment. And that will be nice, because then we can use multiple operating systems such as Linux, Macintosh, and Windows to do so. And this has as a consequence that if you're having a Windows machine, containers do not run on Windows Home. So you will have to obtain a Windows EDU license or Windows Pro, or just get the license yourself. I think that's an important thing. If you, for some reason, don't have the financial means, or your university doesn't offer you with the free version of Windows EDU, then we can discuss this. There are many other things where you can contribute, such as, for example, running your stuff in the cloud would be one other way of doing that. How do you get to the cloud? That's up to you, but we want to document this. I have about 1,000-page long book written that contains multiple things in which we want to update certain things while we are going. And I will be sharing that to you in one of our next sessions. Then we have a communication goal. We want to write a workshop and conference paper that's published by the team. And again, this is on invitation only. If you did not participate in this effort, you will not be able to participate in the conference paper or workshop paper, because there is a requirement from the publisher that I'm required to say you have contributed to this. So, for example, Rajni, I've worked with Rajni. Rajni has worked with me on this, so she will be part of this. And then I hope you guys will be able to join this. Then you will be contributing to the NIST standards document. This is a potential great opportunity, possibly bigger than the conference paper, because if we were to be publishing this, this may actually have a much larger distribution than actually a journal or a conference paper. And you will be then listed in that particular document. And I'm chairing the working group there, and we will be identifying how you best be acknowledged in this. The acknowledgement there on the authorship is being determined by NIST itself in some standard fashion. So I don't have much input in this, but you know, I can make sure that this is being mentioned. Typically, they are just being numbers, and then you can cite yourself as a contributor to that number, and that's how you put it in your resume. Other things are, I will be setting up a web page, and will be improving the web page. The web page will be set up in a framework called Hugo, which is a Go framework, but we will be writing all documents in Markdown. And because I set this up, there's not much we can do. But in case you were to know some Go programming, which is not part of this project, we can do some more sophisticated things. And actually, maybe we really want to do this because the catalog ought to be dynamically created out of Markdown documents that we put into the web page. We will create a manual, examples, tutorials, and presentation. As for the simplified architecture, this architecture is on purpose simplified so that I don't spend like 3 hours explaining every single detail. We have several users that contribute to our, for example, catalog. When we are looking at 119 services from Amazon, no one really knows what's going on. So you browse on this page, then you browse on Azure's page, then you browse on Google's page, then you browse on Oracle's page, you know, and then quickly you realize that you're spending your next 2 or 3 months just browsing and trying to identify what services exist. So what we want to do is we want to create a registry and a catalog that makes it obvious to the user community what actually exists, such as, for example, who is offering natural language services and what are these services doing? Can I reuse them, and how do I reuse them? So we have one group of people within this effort that identifies such services. We have another group that integrates such services into a REST framework. And then we have developers that use the REST framework and develop a program against. Now, this catalog is the most simplest thing. This is developed in order to satisfy the higher level kind of people. So not the programmers, but maybe the ones that have managed managerial oversight and want to identify services that are important for them. So they look then up, okay, is natural language processing working in Amazon, Azure, Google, and others? And then the registry has details about these services so that the integration person can integrate this into a REST service. Now, one of the things is we have also a group of developers that do all the programming. So the integration user is essentially a user. And the developer is the developer that develops the code for the integrators. Now, the good news is we have written a paper, and this is a good example for a paper. I will put that paper in at one point in this particular presentation as a reference, but you can look it up under my name, and it's published in IEEE conference. And here we create REST services directly from Python functions while using a cloud mesh command generator that takes the Python function and automatically creates the REST service. That's pretty good because we can take essentially any arbitrary Python function, and we can want to say, is okay, I'll generate a REST service now out of this, and out comes a REST service, and the integrator can use this particular thing. So this eliminates the work significantly. We have made tests in classes where beginner students were tested on how to do this. If we don't have this particular framework, it took about 2 months for many students to actually develop this and come up to speed. After our GAS service, it was 1 hour to a week, dependent on expertise of the student. Like, for example, did they even have Python knowledge? So we hammered Python knowledge into them while they followed my tutorials. And then they ran for 1 hour this tool, or explored this for 1 hour, and they ran this. The fastest student that ever has done this thing took about 5 minutes. So please remember that these 3 communities could be the same person. So you could be identifying, you could be integrating, or you could be developing. In fact, the people that are on this particular call, I expect them to participate in all 3 activities. I mention this here because in larger companies, you have different teams for these kind of an effort. Then the first task that we want to do is we want to explore the cloudmesh-catalog, have a meeting with Gregor, which is this meeting, but we want to have another meeting in which I introduce you to Cloud Mesh programming. Typically, I recommend that you install PyCharm and use PyCharm for programming because it has a fantastic way of formatting things and makes things really easy. But there is a way in PyCharm to use things and to use things wrongly. And everybody on the PyCharm documentation side or the website will give you a mechanism that leads to a large amount of overhead on your side. When you use PyCharm, do not use create a new project, just open a folder. We download the GitHub repository first on your machine. Once it is downloaded, we will be opening that project with the open feature, not with the create new project. When we develop, we only use PyCharm as an editor. We never start programming within PyCharm. There's a green run button. We never do that because what we are doing is more complicated than that. Instead, we run everything on the command line, and on Windows, that is git bash. We use the Slack to communicate the technical issues as part of the programming so that everybody benefits from it. And we use GitHub to do project management, and I will be asking you some questions now. I will be stopping the presentation just to make sure that it's clean, and I hope that we can continue with questions after that. Just let me stop the presentation. I have to pause. No, I have to stop recording here.